The morning sunlight filtered through the white curtains of their bedroom, casting gentle shadows across Elena's sleeping face. David had been awake for hours, watching her breathe, memorizing every detail of this moment. In just a few hours, he would board a plane that would take him thousands of miles away from everything he loved most in this world. Elena stirred, her dark eyes fluttering open to meet his gaze. For a brief moment, she smiled that sleepy smile he had fallen in love with 7 years ago. Then reality crashed back, and her expression crumbled. "Is it really today?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet room. David nodded, unable to trust his voice. He reached out to brush a strand of hair from her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with infinite gentleness. These small touches, these ordinary moments they had shared for years, would soon become precious memories he would cling to during the long months ahead. The deployment had been hanging over them like a storm cloud for weeks. 18 months. That's how long he would be gone. 18 months of missed birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet Sunday mornings. 18 months of empty spaces at the dinner table and cold sheets on his side of the bed. "Mommy, Daddy, are you awake?" Their 5-year-old daughter, Lucy's voice, drifted through the door, followed by small footsteps running down the hallway. Elena quickly wiped her eyes and plastered on a brave smile as their daughter burst into the room, her blonde hair wild from sleep. "There's my little sunshine," David said, scooping Lucy into his arms and spinning her around. Her giggles filled the room, temporarily pushing away the heavy sadness that had settled over their home like fog. "Daddy, you promised we would make pancakes today," Lucy said, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck. David's heart clenched. He had promised her many things, not knowing when he made those promises that he would have to break them. "Of course, sweetheart. The best pancakes in the whole world," he replied, carrying her toward the kitchen while Elena followed behind, trying to compose herself. The kitchen became their sanctuary that morning. David stood at the stove, flipping pancakes while Lucy sat on the counter beside him, her legs swinging as she chattered about her dreams from the night before. Elena watched them from the doorway, trying to burn this image into her memory, her husband's strong hands as he cooked for their daughter. Lucy's animated expressions as she told her stories, the way the morning light caught in David's brown hair. "Elena, come here," David said softly, extending his arm toward her. She walked into his embrace, and they stood there together, holding each other and their daughter, creating a circle of love that felt both eternal and heartbreakingly fragile. After breakfast, they drove to the park where they had spent countless Saturday afternoons. David pushed Lucy on the swings while Elena sat on their favorite bench, watching. Every laugh, every squeal of delight from their daughter felt both beautiful and painful. These were the sounds David would miss, the moments he would ache for during quiet nights in a foreign place. "Higher, Daddy, higher!" Lucy called out, and David obliged, pushing her swing until she soared through the air like a little bird. Elena captured the moment with her phone, knowing that these pictures would become treasures for all of them. As the afternoon wore on, extended family began arriving at their house. David's parents, Elena's sister with her children, close friends who had become family over the years. The house filled with voices and embraces, everyone trying to make the day feel normal while pretending not to notice the suitcases by the front door or the way Elena's smile never quite reached her eyes. David's mother, Sarah, pulled Elena aside in the kitchen while preparing dinner. "You're stronger than you know, dear," she said, squeezing Elena's hand. "And we'll all be here for you and Lucy. You won't go through this alone." Elena nodded, grateful for the support, but knowing that no amount of family and friends could fill the David-shaped hole that would soon exist in her daily life. She watched through the window as he played catch with his nephew in the backyard, his laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Dinner was a mixture of celebration and wake. Everyone shared stories about David, told jokes, and tried to keep the conversation light. But underneath it all was an undercurrent of sadness, a collective understanding that this might be the last time they would all be together like this for a very long time. Lucy fell asleep in David's lap after dinner, exhausted from the emotional day and all the attention. He carried her upstairs to her bedroom, Elena following behind. Together, they tucked their daughter into her bed, David kissing her forehead and whispering promises he hoped he could keep. "I love you to the moon and back, little star," he murmured. "And back again, Daddy," Lucy replied sleepily, completing their nightly ritual. As the house gradually emptied of guests, Elena and David found themselves alone again. The reality of the approaching farewell settled over them like a heavy blanket. They sat together on the couch, not speaking, just holding each other, listening to the tick of the clock on the mantel that seemed to count down the precious minutes they had left. "I don't know how to do this," Elena finally whispered against his chest. "Neither do I," David admitted, his voice rough with unshed tears. "But we'll figure it out. We always do." Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new heartaches, and a new reality they weren't ready to face. But tonight, they were still together, still whole, still a family under one roof. The suitcases waited by the door like silent sentinels, reminders of the journey that would begin before dawn. But for now, Elena and David held each other close, trying to stop time, trying to make this moment last forever, knowing that by tomorrow evening, everything would be different. The alarm clock's shrill cry cut through the darkness at 4:30 a.m., though neither Elena nor David had really slept. They had spent the night holding each other, talking in whispers, and stealing kisses like teenagers afraid of getting caught. When the alarm sounded, they both froze, as if not moving might somehow stop time itself. David's phone buzzed with a text from his commanding officer. The transport would arrive at 6 a.m. sharp. No delays, no exceptions. Elena sat up slowly, her hair falling in waves around her shoulders. In the dim light from their bedside lamp, David could see that her eyes were already red-rimmed and puffy. She had been crying silently for hours, her tears soaking into his shirt as they lay together. "I need to wake Lucy," she said, her voice hoarse. They had decided together that Lucy should say goodbye at home, in familiar surroundings, rather than at the military base where the chaos and formality might overwhelm their sensitive daughter. It was one of many difficult decisions they had made over the past few weeks, each choice feeling impossible and necessary at the same time. Lucy's room was still dark, her small form curled under her favorite blanket covered in butterflies. Elena gently shook her shoulder while David knelt beside the bed. "Sweetheart, it's time to wake up," Elena whispered. "Daddy needs to go now." Lucy's eyes opened slowly, confusion giving way to understanding and then to tears. Without a word, she launched herself into David's arms, clinging to him with the fierce desperation that only children possess. "I don't want you to go," she sobbed against his neck. "Please don't go, Daddy. Please stay with me and Mommy." David's composure cracked. He had been strong for weeks, had held it together through all the preparations and planning. But his daughter's broken plea shattered every defense he had built up. Tears ran freely down his cheeks as he held her tiny body against his chest. "I know, baby girl. I know," he whispered. "I don't want to go either. But sometimes daddies have to do important jobs, even when it means being away from the people they love most." "But what if you don't come back?" Lucy asked, the question that had been haunting all of them but that no one had dared to voice. Elena and David exchanged a look over their daughter's head. "How do you promise something you can't guarantee?" How do you give a child the security they need while being honest about the realities of the world? Lucy, look at me, David said gently, setting her down so they were at eye level. He pulled out a small silver locket that had belonged to his grandmother. Do you see this? My grandma gave this to me when I was just a little boy, and it kept me safe my whole life. Now I want you to have it, and it will keep both of us safe. Me wherever I am, and you right here at home. Lucy's small fingers traced the delicate engravings on the locket as David fastened it around her neck. And every night when you look at the stars, remember that Daddy is looking at the same stars no matter how far away I am. We'll always be connected that way. The three of them sat together on Lucy's bed, wrapped in each other's arms as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky outside. Elena sang softly, the lullaby she had sung to Lucy since she was a baby, the same song her own mother had sung to her. Their voices blended together in the quiet room, creating a moment of peace in the midst of heartbreak. The sound of a vehicle pulling into their driveway broke the spell. The transport had arrived. David's hands shook as he gathered his things, his duffel bag, his orders, his phone charger. Such ordinary items that now carried extraordinary weight. Elena followed him around the house, as if staying close might somehow keep him from leaving. At the front door, David knelt down to hug Lucy one more time. She had stopped crying but clung to him with quiet desperation, her small face buried against his uniform. I love you more than all the fish in the ocean, all the birds in the sky, and all the stars in the universe, he told her, repeating the phrase they had said to each other every night since she was born. And I love you more than infinity plus one, Lucy whispered back, their special addition to the ritual. That's right, baby. More than infinity plus one. Elena lifted Lucy into her arms, and the three of them stood together in the doorway. David looked back at his home, trying to memorize every detail. The family photos on the hallway table, the small scuff marks on the wall where Lucy had practiced riding her bicycle indoors last winter, the morning light streaming through the windows Elena had hung curtains in just last month. Finally, there was nothing left to do but turn to his wife. Elena's face was streaked with tears, but she smiled at him with such love and courage that it took his breath away. They had been through so much together already. Her miscarriage 3 years ago. His father's heart attack. The time when David had been injured during training and spent 2 weeks in the hospital. They had weathered every storm as a team, supporting each other through the darkest moments. This isn't goodbye, Elena said firmly, though her voice wavered. This is just, see you later. See you later, David agreed, his throat tight with emotion. They kissed then, softly at first, then with all the passion and love and desperation they couldn't put into words. It was a kiss that said everything they hadn't been able to say. A kiss that held promises and prayers and hopes for the future. A kiss that had to last 18 months. When they finally broke apart, both were crying freely. David touched Elena's face one last time, his thumb wiping away her tears even as his own continued to fall. Take care of my girls, he said to Elena's sister, who had arrived to provide support. Take care of yourself, she replied, hugging him tightly. David picked up his bag and walked toward the waiting vehicle. Each step felt like moving through thick mud, every instinct in his body screaming at him to turn around. To run back to his family, to choose love over duty. At the car, he turned back one last time. Elena and Lucy stood framed in the doorway, backlit by the warm light from their home. Lucy raised her small hand and waved, the silver locket catching the morning sun. Elena blew him a kiss, her other arm wrapped protectively around their daughter. The image burned itself into David's memory as he climbed into the vehicle. As they drove away, he watched through the rear window until his house disappeared around the corner. Only then did he allow himself to break down completely. his shoulders shaking with silent sobs as the driver pretended not to notice. Back at the house, Elena closed the door and sank to the floor, Lucy still in her arms. They sat there together in the hallway, holding each other as the sound of the engine faded into the distance. The house felt different already, emptier, as if David's absence had physically removed something essential from the very walls. "Mommy," Lucy said quietly, "when will Daddy call us?" "Soon, sweetheart," Elena replied, though she wasn't sure when that would be possible. "Very soon." Outside, neighbors were beginning to start their daily routines. Dogs were barked, cars started, children laughed on their way to school. Life continued around them, but inside their house time seemed to stand still. The quiet was deafening, broken only by the tick of the clock and the sound of their breathing. Elena looked down at her daughter, at the locket resting against her small chest, and made a silent promise. They would be strong. They would support each other. They would make David proud, and they would be ready with open arms when he came home again. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, beginning a new day that David would not be part of. But his love remained in every corner of the house, in every memory they had created together, and in the hearts of the two people who would carry him with them every single day until he returned. 3 hours after David left, the phone rang. Elena rushed to answer it, hoping against hope that somehow it would be him, that maybe there had been a delay or a change of plans. Instead, it was her mother's gentle voice asking if she and Lucy needed anything. "We're okay, Mom," Elena lied, looking around at their living room where David's coffee mug still sat on the end table, where his book lay open to the page he would never finish reading at home. The first week passed in a haze of routine and adjustment. Elena threw herself into caring for Lucy, maintaining their normal schedule as much as possible. Breakfast at 7, cartoons while Elena got ready for work, dropping Lucy off at kindergarten, 8 hours at her job as a nurse at the local hospital. Picking Lucy up, dinner, bath time, stories, bedtime. Each day identical to the last. Each day another small victory in learning how to live with the David-shaped absence in their lives. Lucy adapted in the way children do, with resilience that both amazed and broke Elena's heart. She carried the silver locket everywhere, often holding it while she fell asleep. She drew pictures of her family that always included 3 figures, even though one of them was far away. She asked fewer questions about when Daddy would call as the days passed, as if she were learning that love didn't always come with immediate answers. The first phone call came on a Tuesday evening, David's voice crackling through a poor connection from halfway around the world. Lucy pressed her face close to Elena's as they shared the phone, both of them hungry for any piece of him they could get. "I miss you both so much." His voice was tired but warm. "Tell me everything. What did you have for breakfast? What did you learn in school today, Lucy? Elena, how was your shift at the hospital?" They talked for 20 precious minutes about ordinary things made extraordinary by distance. Lucy told him about losing her first tooth, about the butterfly they had seen in their garden, about the new friend she had made at school. Elena shared hospital stories, mentioned that she had finally fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom, described the sunset she had watched from their bedroom window the night before. When the call ended, the silence in the house felt deeper than before. But something had shifted too. David was real again, not just a memory or a collection of photographs. His voice had filled their kitchen. His laughter had echoed off their walls. He was still part of their daily life, just in a different way. Elena began writing him letters every night after Lucy went to bed. Long, detailed accounts of their days, stories about Lucy's growing vocabulary and budding personality, descriptions of the changing seasons in their backyard. She wrote about her fears and her hopes, about the way she still reached for him in her sleep, about the strength she was discovering in herself that she never knew existed. Lucy contributed her own messages, dictated to Elena in the serious voice she used for important conversations. "Dear Daddy, today I saw a red bird at the window. I think it was saying hello from you. I am taking good care of Mommy like you asked me to. She cries sometimes, but I give her hugs and then she feels better. I love you to infinity plus 2 now because I grew bigger since you left." The packages Elena sent overseas contained pieces of home. Lucy's artwork, photos from school events David was missing, Elena's favorite cookies wrapped carefully in layers of tissue paper, a small sachet of her perfume so he could remember what home smelled like. David's packages to them arrived sporadically, filled with small treasures from his temporary world. A smooth stone for Lucy's collection, pressed flowers for Elena, postcards of landscapes they would visit together someday. As autumn turned to winter, Elena found herself building new traditions, creating stability in their changed world. Saturday morning pancakes became her and Lucy's special time. Not something they missed sharing with David, but something that belonged uniquely to them now. They started a bedtime ritual of looking at the stars and sending wishes to Daddy across the miles. Elena taught Lucy to braid her hair, a skill she had never bothered to master when David was there to help with such things. The hardest moments came without warning. The first time Lucy had a fever, and Elena sat alone in the emergency room at midnight, wishing desperately for David's calm presence. The morning Elena's car wouldn't start, and she realized how many small crises David had handled without her even noticing. The evening Lucy cried because she couldn't remember exactly what Daddy's laugh sounded like. But there were unexpected joys, too. Elena discovered strength in herself she hadn't known existed. She learned to fix the garbage disposal, to kill spiders without screaming, to make decisions about Lucy's schooling and discipline without consulting anyone. She watched her daughter grow more independent and confident, taking pride in being Mommy's helper, in being brave when things were difficult. The support from their community surrounded them like a warm blanket. David's military family sent care packages and Christmas gifts. Elena's co-workers covered her shifts when Lucy was sick. Their neighbors shoveled their driveway after snowstorms and invited them for Sunday dinners. Lucy's teacher made sure she felt included when other children's fathers came to school events. Spring brought news that David's deployment might be extended by 3 months. Elena cried alone in her bathroom that night, grieving the missed birthday, the delayed reunion, the additional months of single parenting stretching ahead of her. But when she emerged, she was ready to face whatever came next. "We can do this, can't we, Mommy?" Lucy asked one morning, as if she had sensed her mother's renewed determination. "We can do anything together," Elena replied, and she meant it. They planted a garden that spring, something Elena had never had time for when David was home. Lucy helped dig holes for the seeds, her small hands already dirty by 8 in the morning. As they worked side by side, Elena realized that this experience, as painful as it was also teaching them both something valuable. They were learning that love wasn't diminished by distance, that families could be strong even when they were apart, that home wasn't just a place, but a feeling you carried with you. The video calls became more frequent as technology improved and David's schedule allowed. Lucy would perform elaborate shows for the camera, singing songs she had learned at school and displaying her latest art projects. Elena would carry the laptop around the house, giving David virtual tours of Lucy's growth chart marked on the kitchen wall, the new curtains she had hung in the living room, the garden blooming outside their windows. One evening, as Elena tucked Lucy into bed, her daughter looked up at her with David's serious brown eyes. "Mommy, I think Daddy would be proud of us," she said solemnly. Elena's throat tightened. "Why do you think that, sweetheart?" "Because we're taking good care of each other, just like he asked us to. And we're not forgetting him, but we're not too sad to do fun things either." Elena kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at the wisdom hidden in that small body. Lucy was right. They had found a way to honor David's absence without letting it define their entire existence. They had learned to carry their love for him like a light instead of like a burden. As Elena turned off the lights and headed to her own room, she caught sight of their family photo on the hallway table. 3 smiling faces frozen in a moment of perfect happiness. The photo hadn't changed, but everything else had. They were still a family, still bound by love that distance couldn't break. They were just a family learning new ways to be together while apart. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the clear spring sky. Somewhere on the other side of the world, David was looking at those same stars, carrying his love for them like a beacon in the darkness. And here at home, Elena and Lucy carried their love for him the same way, a constant warmth that no amount of miles or months could extinguish. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new small victories, another day of missing him and another day of being strong without him. But tonight, in the house filled with memories and hope, Elena fell asleep knowing that love had many forms, and theirs would endure whatever tests lay ahead. The empty space beside her in bed was still empty, but her heart was full.